It is time for After Death Communication with your host, Marin Muter.
Hi everyone, welcome. Today we'll be answering more of your questions, so sit back and enjoy the show. And thank you for your questions. It's nice to see you today. Today's question is about the veil, and if I can describe how the veil is created and what it does essentially. Essentially, it takes eternal information and filters through this eternal information, finding information that is going to be relevant to our life here, relevant to our survival and relevant to how we move about this life. It also helps create the reality that we see before us. So what happens, and we're going to do this in a nutshell for right now, what happens is in development, when we're in utero, there is no veil. Our brain is in development, but it has full access to our overarching consciousness. Our overarching consciousness means our mind, means our soul. It's our where everything is stored, all this information. And when we are born, our brain shuts off this free flow of information. And so we have a bunch of receptors in our brain that's constantly demodulating information. So it's translating information, frequencies inside our body and frequencies outside of our body. And this is where the veil starts coming into play. So, and we're going to simplify the veil. So I'm only going to give it two kind of layers of the veil today, but it's more in depth than that, but we're just going to look at two primary levels today. So we have the first level up here, and this is going to be the first filter. So if we think of a colander, like we're straining pasta, and let's pretend we had a colander with really big holes. Well, that colander, this first filter, is saying, is this information familiar? So this is from our life here, and is it familiar? So even though all of this information out there is understood by our consciousness, we're looking at this particular life experience. So this particular life experience of Marin has certain familiarities, and it's saying, is this information familiar? And then, if it is familiar, is it relevant to our life here? So when we're born, we have to learn how to communicate. So that's really the first thing that we're doing, is learning communication. So we practice one cry, and that cry says, okay, that gave me this result. And then when we start comprehending that cry, so this interaction is the cry and result, and that creates an interaction. And when we have comprehension of that interaction, then we have some of these frequencies in our brain open up a little bit more and say, okay, now we need more relevant information, and we're going to move on. So we have interaction, comprehension, and that equals more information, or information that is going to be relevant for us here. So we have one cry, it moves into another cry, it moves into another cry, and we're kind of holding all of this information together. When something is no longer relevant in our life, we kind of block it out, and we're like, gosh, I used to know that. I used to remember that, but it's really not relevant to our survival here anymore. So our brain quiets that frequency that has that particular thing. Now, the good thing about this is when we have our veil residing inside of our body, because that's literally where it is. There's no veil out here. There's no something like a sheer curtain that we have to peer around. It's actually just our brain creating our existence here for interacting in this life. It's kind of neat. It filters everything out. The other neat thing is because the brain is located, and because the veil is located in our brain is actually what is creating this veil. That means that our body is actually residing on the other side of the veil. We're just only seeing what our brain wants us to see. Our brain is literally helping us create this reality. So I think that does it for where is the veil and basically how is the veil created. All right, so if you have any follow-up questions to that, let me know and I will answer them. But today it was just a very simple explanation of how the veil is created and what it is used for.